Here it is, the all-new 2025 Ford Expedition. In front of me, it's the Platinum Stealth Performance Package, okay? All of these massive three-row SUVs, and trust me, the Expedition is still massive, have been inundated with a bunch of tech, a ton of tech, more screens, more complexity. So today we're gonna find out if Ford has gone too far. Let's go for a drive. All right, here she is. The Expedition is not going anywhere. Despite all of this EV talk and all of this focus on efficiency, the Expedition lives another generation, and it has not particularly gotten any more efficient. It does have the same 3.5 liter EcoBoost twin turbo V6 under the hood. And first things first, our drive mode selector is down here on the left. An odd location. The Yukon has it in the exact same spot. It's fine. All-wheel drive settings, or I guess your four-wheel drive settings, are down here as well. Too high, too low. It does have a 2-speed transfer case. But let's do some accelerating. So much noise. This V6 is phenomenal. There will be a crowd of you, I'm sure some of you are watching this video, who are still going to complain that this does not have a naturally aspirated V8. I get that. The Yukon still has a 6.2 NA V8. This is boosted. Okay, it doesn't have the most immediate torque response, but it has so much torque. 510 pound-feet of torque and 440 horsepower. That's more torque and power than the Yukon has with the 6.2. Thing is, this is the high output version of this engine. So in the Tremor, this is standard, but here in the Platinum spec, this requires you to spec the Stealth Performance Package. Otherwise, you get 40 less horsepower and I believe about 30 less pound-feet of torque. So it is so fast. It's quicker than a three-row body-on-frame SUV needs to be. I'll take it. There is an argument to be made for the V8. Number one is sound. This does not sound nearly as good as that V8, and in fact, this Stealth Performance Pack does add a quote-unquote sound enhancer. So I'm assuming that's bringing in kind of augmented sound from the engine into the cabin. And when this Expedition needs to be quiet, it's so quiet. On the freeway, this one's on all seasons, it's great. Basically no wind noise, or at least minimal, considering the shape of the Expedition. And yes, it still handles like a big, heavy, almost 6,000 pound body-on-frame SUV. A lot of the bigger bumps in the road come through as shutters in the chassis, so you do sacrifice a little bit in ride quality compared to a smaller two-row SUV. With the Stealth Performance Package, though, you get continuously controlled dampers. That's what Ford calls it. It's been sport-tuned here. They're adaptive dampers. Obviously, that goes without saying. So they not only improve ride quality and will adapt to the road ahead, but also they're a little bit sport-tuned, so there's a little bit less body roll. Everything's a little bit tighter with the Stealth Performance Pack. On top of that, all these Expeditions for this generation, the suspension's been reworked. So they reworked the subframe. It's got stiffer mounts in certain places. Overall, just to kind of bring out some comfort as much as possible. Here in sport mode, you get a little bit less pitch and roll. Wow, the engine's loud. Again, if you needed a reminder, you get some pitch and roll. It's a big SUV at the end of the day, but for how much this thing weighs, it handles great. Now, in normal mode, noticeable difference between this and the Yukon Denali. That is also a little bit more expensive, but it was spec'd with the adaptive air suspension. So the Expedition does not have variable ride height at all, and it doesn't have air suspension. Now, the dampers on the Yukon settled incredibly quickly. Like over a big speed bump, the body didn't do a bunch of like heaving after the speed bump. The Expedition does. The Yukon is a little bit more stiff in most scenarios. The Expedition tends to kind of waft over bigger bumps, but it doesn't settle as quickly. So there we go. All right. 2 downshifts, took a second from the 10-speed auto. In most scenarios, it's good. It's quick to shift down. It doesn't really hunt for gears. And you do get decent fuel economy here, 13.3 liters per 100 kilometers, or about 17.7 US miles per gallon. A couple things I don't like. The last generation, I noted, did not have paddle shifters. They have not brought paddle shifters to this Expedition. In fact, in order to shift gears myself, there's just 2 buttons here, gear up, gear down. That's no good. The only scenario in which I'm going to be using that is if I'm going uphill, I'm towing, or I'm off-roading at low speeds. That's it. The second, and this is almost a deal breaker for the Expedition, the square steering wheel. It's not quite square. You guys are mid-sentence typing on your keyboards right now. In a sports car, something with a really quick steering rack, this isn't the worst, although I didn't really love it in the Corvette either, but here in a vehicle where on any 90-degree corner, you're going hand over hand like multiple times, it's kind of frustrating. It's a little bit awkward to grab the steering wheel. It's the first thing you notice when you begin driving this, and it's the last thing you notice when you're in a parking lot and you're about to get out. The camera comes up for my blind spot, that's all well and good, but then when the steering wheel returns to center, you can't just let it go and kind of flow through your hands back to 9 and 3. Best part are these running boards. That comes with the Platinum package. This is, like I mentioned, the most controversial Expedition change in my opinion, not just in tech and interior stuff, which we'll get to in a second, but exterior styling. I actually really like the way it looks. It's got this kind of LED strip for the headlights that comes down all the way around. It looks more like a luxury SUV than it ever has. In fact, the previous generation I still thought looked pretty similar to the first and second generations, but regardless, the Expedition is Ford's largest SUV. Still not quite as big as the Excursion was back in the day, but I mean, it takes 20 minutes to walk to the back, and this isn't even the extended wheelbase max version of the truck. It's about 5 inches longer than that original generation and about 4 inches taller. It's huge. This one, of course, has the Stealth Performance Pack on it, like I talked about, and that gives you a bunch of black badging up here. Everything's blacked out. This one's sitting on 22-inch wheels, which I think is a perfect middle ground. The Tremor, of course, gets smaller wheels, and then the Platinum Max gets the larger 24s. You probably sacrifice a little bit of ride quality with those 24s. Platinum also gets you power folding mirrors, but most importantly, the Expedition needs to hold everything. Not sure if I mentioned this already, but the Tremor, if you spec that, the off-road package, then that comes with, of course, a suspension lift and, you know, the tow hooks on the front end, a bunch of orange accents, stuff like that. It's very clearly an off-road package. The knobby tires, everything that comes with it. Here in this gray metallic color, I forget exactly what it's called, not quite black, but it's got a ton of flake in it, dark gray, gunmetal kind of color. I love it. This tailgate only comes in gloss black, specifically this top half. That is body color, you probably can't tell, and that's gloss black. Wow, that is some thunder. Just know if you do spec the Expedition in a light color, you're stuck with the contrasting gloss black hatch. You might get used to it, who knows, but they have drastically changed the rear end, taillights. I think it looks pretty good. Again, it kind of has a luxury look to it versus what you would find in the previous generation. Okay, the noise was insane. I had to move locations. More peaceful here. All right, so the biggest change though comes when you go to open the hatch. So the Yukon has the glass hatch that opens on the top there. This has a split hatchback. That's of course new for 2025. And as you can see, it does introduce an extra layer of washing your vehicle because, yeah, this is all dusty. I did wipe down the bumper and such because we did go on a little bit of a trail. But yeah, you can see there's some dust there. You can program this in the infotainment to, with the key fob, open either one of them like this or both of them. So this at the bottom is also an electronically released tailgate, which is pretty cool. So And you'll see in a second, this kind of carries on into the interior. There's a lot of functionality that's been built into this generation, but that does introduce some sacrifices if you choose to look at it that way. There are pros, and then with every pro, there's cons. There's like a balance that you have to strike. I think this is a great way to do things. There's an optional kind of shelf that you could set up either, well, as a shelf or as a kind of seat back, so you can do proper tailgating with the Expedition, which is pretty cool. But on the other hand, if you want this level area like this and you're trying to load stuff in here, then you can't get as close to the bumper. So that, I guess could be a downside in some scenarios. But a positive is when you close this, then you can prevent things from kind of moving around back here. I think it looks pretty cool. Obviously, the Expedition can seat up to 8. Now, here in the Platinum, you get the captain's chairs in the second row, especially if you get the Stealth Performance package. You have to get the captain's seats. And then, of course, if you guys watched my Yukon review, I'm always impressed at how quickly those seats go down. Now, these, you don't have to hold the button. I can stand back here, but they do go down slowly. But you do have a bunch of buttons back here to adjust your seats. Wow. Okay, those ones are quick. Right there. Boom. 2 cup holders on each side for the third row. A ton of space back here. 2 USBs on that side as well. And the seats are power adjustable from there. And then over here, you've got your AC 120 volt there. Another power outlet there. 2 USB-Cs. So for the second row, you can do it from here. Collapse it flat. Or there's a button there. Physical climate controls for the second row passengers, and of course heated seats. With the Platinum, you also get 2 USB charging ports per seat. It's really comfortable. These armrests are huge. You get leather for the second row too. It's a very comfortable place to be. It's not quite Denali Ultimate levels of luxury. Of course, Ford has the Lincoln Navigator for that. Third row is great. 3 seats back there. A ton of room. It's really comfortable. And the most controversial part of the new Expedition, the interior. Let's take a look around, okay? So the last 3-row SUV I drove was the GMC Yukon, and they just updated that. If you haven't watched the review, go check it out, right? They still kept a lot of the physical controls that the previous generation had. Really awesome kind of tactile temperature and fan controls down here, which I love. But then they just kind of updated the tech to a more modern spec. You can put your maps on the center screen, stuff like that, right? The Expedition takes it to a whole nother level. And this screen right here, 24-inch screen down here, and a just over 13-inch screen right here. And a lot of information actually is not on this screen. The only things you really get is the map on that side, which is great. The Expedition does not get a heads-up display. It doesn't need it. I'm fine with that. I actually really love this screen initially when you get on the inside, because it allows you to keep your eyes up on the road a lot more often. And that's exactly why they designed this the way they did. Now, what comes with this is a sacrifice on the steering wheel. This is my least favorite part about the Expedition. I talked about it while driving, and I'm not gonna harp on it too much more, but the square steering wheel, you guys, this has gotta go. Now, what comes with the steering wheel are these little track pads here. This is not a haptic feedback type scenario, which I'm happy about. I'm glad that's not the case. Doesn't get fingerprints on it, and it feels really good. There are no indications, visually speaking, looking at this, as to what it does. Now, if I put my finger on it and touch, it brings this up, which will show me exactly what I'm about to press. When I first began driving the Expedition a couple of days ago, I hated this. Couldn't stand it. I kept looking down to see where everything was. I actually really like these haptic, I keep calling them haptic buttons, they're not. I actually really like the way these buttons work. I don't know how to explain it. Now, the one thing that's a little bit annoying is you do have to click that to bring up a second menu, and from there you can see now I can either go back, or I can adjust my steering wheel from here, or my pedals. They updated this gauge cluster here to be a bit more minimalist. The previous generation, previous generation, I guess, had a gauge cluster that was a little bit more customizable. You could have your tach on the left side, speedo on the right. And on top of that, when you changed your drive modes, it would display just kind of a graphic, you know, not useful or anything, but just a graphic when you change the drive modes. It's now all Google-based, which is awesome. So you've got your, you know, apps, Spotify, Play Store, you can download different apps. You've got YouTube. Now, Ford says this is their fastest infotainment system. It is. It's incredibly fast. I would have preferred physical climate controls. Like I mentioned, there is still a physical volume knob. However, you know, these climate settings are always down here. And then just to bring up a couple more, you tap the button. You know, I don't hate the system the way it is. It works. You get used to it. I would rather have what the Yukon has, which is just a row of nice tactile physical buttons. Oh, and before we go, I'll finish off the interior here with a redeeming quality and a not so redeeming quality. Something I would change, but that's not a deal breaker, and that is the gear selector down here. It's better here than it was in the Maverick Lobo, because the Maverick Lobo's is way down there. You really got to reach down. Here, it's in a fine location. The Yukon just has a stack right here, like any other truck. Really easy to use. I don't know why Ford did not do that. Another thing I actually just remembered, all your headlight controls are also in the screen. Oh, also, the list goes on. I promise I will get to this redeeming quality here in a second, but the driver memory is over here. It's not on the seat, which is a little bit frustrating. So what I can do here, I have the option to save my current position to the driver profile. You don't have like a 1, 2, 3 easy to map like that. You have to switch profiles or drive as guest or add a profile and enter in a bunch of information. Profile name, adjustments, link profile. You got to go through all these things to adjust or to set your second preset for your seat settings. On to the redeeming quality, and that is the storage. I mean, the Expedition is huge. It does actually have a ton of storage space, and for the most part here, it's well thought out. Here's your wireless charger right there. That's easy enough to use. You've got your trailer assist down here. This can tow up to 9,600 pounds when you spec it with the, I believe it's called the Max Trailering package. Big center console here. This comes down, of course, all leather with the Platinum. This actually is able to slide forward and back. I really like this. So this, when I push it back, enables the second row passengers to just get easy access to the cup holder, and that solves the problem of having a massive second row center console that gets in the way of getting to the third row. Overall, it's a great place to be. These seats, so comfortable. We only have a two-way lumbar here. Great materials too. Bang & Olufsen 22 speaker audio system with the Stealth Performance package. In addition to all of this, the most offensive part of this entire Expedition is if you want maps, GPS, just a native maps system, you have two choices. You either have to pay a one-time fee when you purchase a brand new Expedition to unlock all of the Ford connected systems, which include a Wi-Fi hotspot, and all of these things. Included in that is your native Google Maps. Or you get a 1-year free trial, and then it's a subscription service after that. Your maps, your built-in your vehicle navigation will be a subscription unless you pay an upfront extra fee to have your maps.
Unlimited Wi-Fi for everyone. Embedded Google Maps. Downloadable Play Store apps. All powered by the Ford Connectivity Package. Ask your dealer to add the Ford Connectivity Package to your new Expedition today.
So in short, GPS navigation is not standard on the 2025 Ford Expedition. That's absolutely insane. Once your trial expires, your free trial, you no longer have access to Google Maps. You have to have a phone integration all the time if you want navigation. That's so insane. On top of that, if you want Ford Blue Cruise that I was talking about earlier, you also have to pay either a one-time fee, which is like $3,000 Canadian, or a subscription fee after your 3-month free trial. So the Expedition starts at $82,000 here in Canada, as tested $114,000 Canadian or $87,000 US. Now, this as tested price, I included paying outright for your maps, your connectivity, and Ford Blue Cruise in that, because these are things that presumably you're buying a vehicle, you're buying everything that comes with it. So I'm just including that in the as tested price. That's what it would cost to pay everything outright, you know, to buy the vehicle. So the Expedition is a massive, comfortable, quiet, 3-row SUV that basically does it all and is incredibly stealthy. I love this thing. Overall, once I look past / get used to some of the flaws in the driving experience. So thanks guys for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you soon.